How's it going, guys, and welcome back to BL3's Forgotten, the series where I take a look at underused and not often talked about pieces of gear to determine whether or not they deserve to be remembered within the modern meta of the game or should be left behind and forgotten. And today we are taking a look at the Handsome Jackhammer. If you'd like to get the Handsome Jackhammer for yourself, you're going to want to fast travel over to Skywall 27 on Promethea, making your way down towards this save station on the lower level of the map. From there, you're going to head forward into the doorway, taking an immediate left and wrapping around this pillar, where out of a shipping crate, Handsome Jackie will spawn. Kill her and she can drop you the Handsome Jackhammer. The Handsome Jackhammer is a legendary BL3's SMG. Wait, what? The Handsome Jackhammer is a legendary Hyperion SMG, able to roll in any element and having the unique effect of being a TDR. Pretty much. On reload, the Handsome Jackhammer will be chucked, the chuck dealing splash and grenade damage, and of course stealing from the amount of bullets left within your magazine. Upon being thrown, the Jackhammer will bounce 5 times wherever it landed, with a large explosion triggering on each bounce. The Handsome Jackhammer is also a talking gun, and as the name would imply, is the voice of Funny Pretzel Man from Borderlands 2.
Hey! How did pretzels suck?
God, I love him so much. Every time I hear his voice, my diaper gets a little more full. Worth noting, while this does deal splash damage, the Jackhammer cannot roll with any splash damage anointments. The Jackhammer has had a couple changes, initially gaining— Wait! Deadass, I just learned about this right now while recording. This is hilarious. Initially, the Jackhammer got an increase to its base weapon damage, but it was then hit by the overall TDR chuck damage nerf. Bro! Real time, that fucking TDR bit just became even more real. Holy shit. That also pisses me off, but we'll get to that in a second. I first want to talk about the Jackhammer as a shooter, because it's actually really solid. I mean, you got 11,000 base damage at a 9.3 fire rate. You're gonna be pumping out some damage. It's definitely not the most accurate thing ever, but it's more than enough to dispatch enemies pretty damn quickly. It isn't anything too special in the shooting department, but if you are just a fan of how Hyperion SMGs play and you want a super simple one, this honestly is a pretty good option. Now, as a chucker, this might actually be one of the best TDRs in the game, and this motherfucker isn't even a TDR, which is even more ironic considering it got hit by the fucking TDR nerf, Jesus Christ. But it has an absolutely huge AoE that hits multiple times per chuck, each dealing really good damage. This is probably the most bang for your buck chucker that you can find. Hitting for full damage 5 times per chuck is kind of ridiculous, all coming together just beautifully for a very bouncy, very explosive package. Now, that being said, I did actually remember this being significantly better, and I now understand why. Previously to sitting down and recording this, I thought I was just mistaken. I thought I was thinking way back, and I was just confused, because as good as this gun is currently, I do remember it being a hell of a lot better, and yeah, it's doing half the damage that it used to, which is a huge shame because one of the things I absolutely loved doing with the Jackhammer was bossing. This was genuinely one of my favorite bossing TDRs, and nowadays it has definitely fallen off in that aspect a little bit. Definitely still great at mobbing, but nothing quite hits as hard as just standing back and watching this thing bounce its ass on a boss's head until it dies. But as much as the TDR nerf sucks, I don't even think that's the biggest issue with using the Jackhammer. The biggest issue, in fact, is the bounce. It can be wildly inconsistent, especially if you throw it directly at an enemy, in which case odds are pretty good that it'll just bounce off and you'll never see it again. Either that or it'll bounce right back towards you and you'll see it a little bit too closely. This kind of leads to you wanting to aim it at the ground next to enemies to use it the most effectively. But even then, uneven surfaces can also be just as much of a pain in the ass, sending this thing flying off to Little St. James. Whoa, check the flight logs. There he is, Handsome Jackhammer, what are we gonna do? Also, it's affected by gravity, which I find hilarious. This gun bounces higher in low gravity areas like Minos Prime and Skywell. Now, this part is definitely maybe a bit of a skill issue, but I found it incredibly difficult to avoid an early onset of suicide when using this gun. While that huge AoE is really nice for taking out groups, it also disables an entire section of the battlefield for quite some time as it bounces those 5 times, kind of just creating a contagion zone of self-explosion. Overall though, I do think the Handsome Jackhammer is an incredibly fun and incredibly good gun, with the only real gripe that I have with it just being the consistency of the bounce. It can definitely be a little bit annoying trying to actually make it hit enemies, but honestly on a majority of maps, as long as you get used to just throwing it next to or in front of your targets, it's really not that big of a deal. What is a big deal though is that this Hyperion weapon got hit by a T-Yor targeting nerf. A nerf that in general, I think was stupid, but especially seeing it hit a gun that is literally not even that manufacturer is kind of ridiculous. And it didn't even prevent it from outclassing a majority of the T-Dors in this game. That's crazy. He just keeps getting away with it. That's not about do it for this one though. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, definitely consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, all that. I'll be live right after this video goes up right here on YouTube and also over on my Twitch channel where you can find a link to down in the description below. And just below that is a link to my Discord server where you can come and join and hang out. But with that all being said, I hope to see you guys in the next one.